I feel really fortunate today to be on stage with Steve and Jen and Leti. And I am really excited to be able to ask them some hard questions so they can talk to us about sort of their practices, their habits, and what they have done in order to have the successful careers that they have had to date. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Leti. Leti Light serves, this is Leti, everyone. Say hi to Leti. Leti Light serves as the Executive Director in the Principal Gifts and Strategic Initiatives Department in the University Development and Alumni Relations, or UDAR, as we all say. In collaboration with members of the campus community, her team works with the world's leading philanthropists to achieve their dreams through partnership with the university, and she helps make Berkeley's highest aspirations possible. Leti is a higher education leader in fundraising for large initiatives, including the Berkeley Brain Initiative, Innovative Genomics Institute, Data Science and Information, and the Environment Resilience Accelerator. These cross-cutting, multidisciplinary initiatives engage the partnership of a wide range of campus leaders in order to deliver transformational impact for the public good. Over the last 19 years, Leti has worked in philanthropic development at Cornell University, UCLA, and now UC Berkeley. Thank you, Leti. Jen Sang. Jen Sang is currently the Assistant Dean of Finance and Administration at the College of Environmental Design. She's worked on the UC Berkeley campus for the last 15 years in different schools and colleges and in various roles, ranging from student services to the operations to program management to finance. So she has done everything. Jen has an MBA from the Haas School of Business and a bachelor's in chemical engineering from Manhattan College. Prior to her career in higher education, she was a project engineer at Texaco, focusing on international business development for clean power and technology. And finally, Steve. Dr. Steve Sutton currently serves as the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at UC Berkeley, where he began his student affairs journey as a residential life coordinator. He has worked in higher education for over 30 years. His experience as a first-generation college student from a small town in southern Ohio informs his work as an educator, as does his 3-year experience as a resident assistant, as probably does the fact that he has 2 college student children.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. As UC Berkeley's Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, he acts as an advocate for a range of issues impacting the college experience. Steve has worked in a variety of functional areas within student affairs during his career, including the Dean of Students Office, student union management, housing and residential life, facilities management, and student activities. Steve has a Bachelor's of Science in Microbiology and a Master of Arts in Higher Education and Student Affairs, both from The Ohio State University, and his Doctorate of Education is from the University of Houston. What a very impressive panel. So I started the day today by going to a session on how to facilitate a session, talk about just-in-time training. And one of the things that the presenters talked about was the need for an icebreaker. So I'm going to start with an icebreaker. We're going to do a lightning round here. So the first question for each of you is, in a few words, what's the best career advice you have ever received and why? And we are going to start with Jen.
Well, I've been fortunate to have a lot of great mentors in my career. And one of my mentors said, you know, to really grow and develop, you really need to do some things that make you uncomfortable. And I'm like, why would I choose to do something that makes me uncomfortable? That seems like not really good advice. But her wise words were like, how do you ever know where your boundaries are, what you can do unless you try new things? Maybe you fail, maybe you succeed, but if you don't try and you don't do these things that are unknown and uncomfortable, you'll never know. And I like to think of it as you do new jobs and do new projects throughout your career, it's like you being at the ice cream shop. You want to taste all the flavors and be like, oh, I want a full scoop or I want a full cone of that because I've tried everything and I know what I want to do. So that's my...
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Steve.
When you said icebreaker, I thought we were going to do like a trust fall or something.
Totally.
So for me, I think it's kind of similar to what Jen said. It's to just step forward. I was encouraged earlier in my career when people were leaving jobs and vacancies were being created to just step forward and take a chance. Try to get out of my comfort zone, do something new and different, maybe gain some new experiences. And that's something I think that has served me very well. I've had the chance to do that numerous times throughout my career, step into roles that maybe I didn't know completely what that work environment was all about, but it's taught me things that I've been able to use throughout my career.
And Leti, how about you?
I actually remember the moment exactly. I had an opportunity while I was at UCLA Engineering to sit down with the CEO and chairman of Northrop Grumman, Ron Sugar, who's an alum of that school. And we were talking about actually advice for undergraduates and for alumni, but the piece of advice he gave was that the best employees are the ones who can recognize the needs of the organization and just provide it without asking. And what that means is you have to have a much bigger and broader awareness of your context and what is going on around you to even be able to do that. And it shapes how you move and interact across the organization beyond just your particular role.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, I had an experience the last time I was working at UC Berkeley, and I had a person who was working for me. And we, 1 month, decided that we were all going to write a haiku about who we were. And this person's haiku was, find a hole, fill it. And it's sort of similar to what you're saying, which is find an opportunity to be helpful and step in and do that. Okay, Leti, don't relax yet, because the next question is for you.
Okay.
What steps have you taken or habits have you adopted that have had a significant positive impact on your career?
So there are a few related to the advice I just shared. I think it's really important wherever you are in the organization to get to know your leadership and make sure that they get to know you. Don't be intimidated by hierarchy or any of that. I think it's, there's a period of time when you're younger and perhaps you think, I'll just work really hard and they'll notice, but that's not real. It's important that others be aware and that you form a community and a community of supporters, both laterally but vertically in the organization as well. And I have found that to be incredibly helpful, not just because of my own professional aspirations, but I've had some hard moments where I had to, I was at a fork in the road, or I really had to evaluate what I was doing, and having access to be able to call on the vice chancellor at the time and say, I need some help or I need some advice is really helpful. And I have to say, being in the UC context, to even be able to be in an organization that provides that kind of access has been really amazing.
Wonderful.
Now, in terms of habits, I also think it's so important to have a life well beyond work. While my career is deeply entwined with my identity and what I am passionate about, there are so many other things. And, I am on boards, I'm involved in the community, I'm a mother, I have a social life, I work out 5 days a week and have a whole community around that too. And so in terms of habits, my time is very structured so I can fit it all in. But one of my fundamentals is to protect time. Don't let it, others just take it away from you. Really, use it like you do money and allocate it to the things that you care about most.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jen?
There's definitely a few themes, a few best practices I've had for really helping to positively shape my career and professional life. Similar to Leti, I strongly believe in this, again, investing in something outside of just your work. I've been very adamant throughout my career that you have to have fun while doing it. You have to build the relationships with the people you work with and connect with them on a personal level. I am and I know there's several people in the room who know me, I am very adamant about protecting my lunch. I need the time. I will go outside just to take the breath, have a clear head, and take that opportunity to network with, some of the people I like to connect with on a regular basis. And it has helped me tremendously in keeping a proper work-life balance. So I agree with you, figuring out what those things are and protecting it and making sure that's a part of your overall work life. Another thing that I have found to be extremely helpful, obviously I'm sure you've heard throughout the day, mentorship is such a great and powerful tool in your career. Obviously having a mentor to help advise you through those tough times is obvious, but I have actually found me being a mentor to others, the giving to others has really, I think, made me learn a lot about myself and helped me grow in a way that I didn't anticipate. So that giving as well as the receiving on the mentorship has, I think, really, really been a positive influence. And then, of course, again, the taking control of your career, that again, not letting certain traditions or things or people be a mental barrier for you to try and go for the things that you want, creating your own project, asking for a new project. I think, the worst someone can tell you is, no, you can't do that or whatever, but if you don't take that ownership and try and ask for it, you'll never get it. So those are my things.
Wonderful. Steve, I've got a question for you. These glasses are relatively new for me. I can't see them when I have my glasses on, so I'm still trying to figure out. I know some people have like cool things they do, like they put it in their mouth, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to use these glasses to make myself look official. Okay, so Steve, please tell us about a moment in your career that you look back on as a critical choice point. What made it pivotal, and what did you do?
Okay, so in 2008, I was working in Houston, Texas, at a small Catholic university there, regional university. I was the vice president for student affairs. I was hired by the new president there to be his vice president of student affairs. I've been in that job about 5 years. Then I got this phone call from the search consultant that said to me, "Your name's come up for this job at Berkeley. So would you consider this job?" Now, I had worked at Berkeley before many years earlier in my career. Actually, when I first started my career in student affairs, and had been away about 17 years. And so I said, yeah, let's check this out. Let's pursue this. Let's see what's going to happen. I ended up, things worked out. I was able to actually come back to Berkeley. Many of my colleagues at the time were a bit skeptical in terms of why I wanted to leave this job I had at the University of St. Thomas, because things were working out really well there. And I actually moved back here for a job that was in a very different part of the organization. It was much more specific. I was working in student housing. And so many people were sort of questioning why I would make that career decision. And really we're kind of asking questions like, did something happen at St. Thomas? What's going on? But one of the reasons I really wanted to come back to Berkeley, one of the reasons I got really excited, was I felt that the 5 years I had spent at Berkeley previously, this was the place when I was challenged the most. I had the most growth. I felt like I really got a chance to learn a lot about myself and felt like I really could make a contribution. I love the campus community that was here. I had been very involved, even as a young professional, in different things on campus, like the Chancellor Staff Advisory Committee and other things. And so it was really exciting for me to be able to have the opportunity to come back. And so I'm glad I made that choice. And I think so far it's worked out. So
we are glad you made the choice as well, Steve. Leti.
So my story is also about how I came to choose Berkeley. 3.5 years ago, I'd been at UCLA for 8.5 years, almost 9, and I just finally had hit that moment where I was willing to even consider something else. And I had 2 wildly different opportunities to choose from. One was at a very, very, very well-resourced private university in LA, where I already was, and the other was Berkeley. At the other, so I'm going to describe the two. On the one hand, it was to take on a very senior role, managing a large team but one that I would have to turn around. And in a very kind of a traditional role in one of the major units there. The Berkeley opportunity was completely different in that it was new for the campus. I was originally recruited to Berkeley to lead the fundraising efforts for the Berkeley Brain Initiative. And this was a new model of taking a more social cause approach versus the traditional kind of colleges, units, and programs approach. That would be multidisciplinary and working with half a dozen of the units and the research unit as well. But I would be a solo practitioner as one, kind of dangling on this part of the organization as they figure out how to go about this. The research program itself had not yet been fully conceptualized. I actually hadn't even met the academic leader in my search process because he had a death in the family. So it was a big blank slate compared to a very traditional and known option. So a couple of things happened. When Berkeley was able to match the other offer, I actually knew what it would take to be able to do that, and I said, wow, they're willing to go to bat for people that they care about, and that was a major signal. But also, and way more importantly, I just felt like Berkeley was moving in the right direction, and there seemed like there was an opportunity there. I'm not going to get this exactly right, but one of the senior female leaders who was early in considering joining Google was given the advice that you don't have to know exactly what's going to happen, but if you see that rocket ship going in the right direction, get on it. And I felt like that was happening in that moment, so I took a risk and I chose Berkeley, and I'm so grateful that I did.
In my kitchen, I have a little block of metal that I got at a gas station while I was getting a car wash many years ago. And this little block of metal has etched into it, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? And similar to the two of you, when I've had to make those hard decisions in my life about, I'm sorry, I haven't turned towards the people on this side of the room. When I've had to make, those pivotal choice point decisions in my life, really sort of putting fear aside and thinking about what would great look like if I were going to be completely successful in whatever I do next, what should it be? That guidance has always been really helpful as I've moved through my career. And because I'm the moderator, I get to answer my own questions, which is why I took us on that aside. Okay, anyway, our next question is going to be for Steve and Jen. And our question is, we all have obstacles and setbacks in our career. How did you cope with those you've faced? And I'll start with Jen.
Yeah, I mean, we all certainly have obstacles. I would say, I'm sure, we've all had ruts in our careers at certain points in time. I know I have. We've all had maybe non-ideal manager situations and learning how to cope with that. So I know I've had that. And I find the ways to survive those situations, well, again, through the mentorship and networking, again, right, building those relationships at work, since it's been so important to me. I mean, those people, those relationships I've built have been my strength during those tough times. I mean, they're the people I bounce those ideas off of. I'm like, am I crazy? Does this sound good? Should I do this? Should I do that? And the wonderful thing about working on this campus and everybody here in this room, we all have a network of talented, bright people we can always bounce those ideas off of, and it's such a great support network. So, I mean, definitely build that network because it helps you at your darkest times and your difficult situations. But also, I mean, I've learned over time, I would say certainly more at the beginning of my career, where I think a lot of things would be like, oh, I can't believe the bureaucracy is preventing me from doing this. Oh, I can't believe I've got this roadblock, or I can't believe, the things that you get upset about on a daily basis, the roadblocks and the challenges that we all face in our jobs, can like make your day bad and it ruins your mood. And then, maybe you bring that home and it just, it muddies your interactions with your family. And then you really have to learn to develop this skill of like taking a breath and thinking big picture. Like, wait a minute, why am I letting this person or this incident ruin my day, ruin the interactions with my family or whatever? Big picture, like this is not going to ruin my life. Like I will survive. I need to get over this and move on. And so constantly keeping that mindset, like, okay, it was a little road bump, and I gotta deal with it and whatever. But don't let it ruin your life, ruin your relationships. You really have to have that mentality to survive, particularly in this campus in the long run. And then the other thing is, I think particularly in a situation where you're kind of in a work rut and you're trying to figure out what the next thing you want to do is, and you haven't found that dream job yet, or you're just not quite there. But don't lose faith, don't give up. Find an interesting project, create an interesting project for yourself that keeps that passion alive in you until you can get onto the next stop in your career. So, do that for yourself.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you, Jen. Steve.
Yeah, great story. So when I was living in Houston, as I mentioned earlier, I had made a choice to move from one institution I was working at to another institution for a new job. And very early into that job, I realized that this was not a good choice for a variety of different reasons. And it really challenged me. I came very close to leaving student affairs, in fact, leaving higher education altogether. I was looking at all kinds of things that I might do with my talents and interests outside of higher education. But through the encouragement and support of people that I worked with and the relationships that I had nurtured, it was amazing to me just how much people came to the rescue, if you will, in terms of being there to support me, encourage me, really sort of helping me focus on why I was in higher education to begin with in terms of the values that are important to me and how those really match the work that we do and the mission that we have in higher education. And so I was able to land on my feet. Somebody that I knew was able to offer me a position. I stayed within student affairs, and actually opened up, moving to this new job opened up many doors for me that later on were very helpful to me in terms of what I wanted to do eventually with my career. But a lot of it was just how you choose to react to a situation. And just the importance of relationships. I mean, today, a big part of what today is all about is just nurturing relationships, meeting new colleagues, focusing on our community as a campus. Our Chancellor talks a lot about the building positive community on our campus, and this is a big part of what the Now Conference does. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to just be here today, too, to be able to interact with all of you in sessions, outside of sessions, because I think it's so critical in terms of building those connections, because people come to your rescue. They come and provide you that support and help, and we do that for each other, right? So that's something that's very critical. And sometimes it's easy to get really frustrated and to get down the dumps and to think, how am I going to survive this type of situation? But just knowing that we've got people around us that are going to pick us up, encourage us, and maybe even open doors for us is really, really important.
Wonderful. And we are right on track. It says at 4:08. I'm supposed to ask the last question, and it is 4:08. Look at that. Okay.
This is why you're sitting, Chancellor.
Sorry. So this is for everybody. So I'm going to give you time to think. And this is a really good question that I wrote myself. So what do you know now that you wish you had known earlier in your career, and why? And I am going to start with Leti. Thank you for volunteering.
I think about this a lot. So I have developed now that I care so deeply about being a whole human being. When I was younger, I think I thought you had to kind of be a certain way at work, and you had to cordon off other elements of your personal life or your, things that were not kind of directly related to work. But I completely changed my mindset about that I think you can only be your most authentic self and have the connection with others that you need if you're bringing your whole self to work. And if you consider other people as whole human beings as well. So be genuine, be open as much as you care to, and don't be bashful about that. And it'll only help you connect with everyone that you're in it together with and delivering on the mission.
Jen.
Earlier in my career in higher ed, so when I started in higher ed, I was doing a 180-degree career transition from engineering to higher ed. And so getting that first job in higher ed was very hard because I clearly didn't have a lot of experience to talk from, but I was trying to make this career transition. And, I had a lot of rejections, and I tried very hard to be and interview in a way that I would say to try to convince people. And I banged my head against the wall. I'm like, why won't these people hire me? Or what's the problem? And I feel like early on in my career, I would just have done anything to just get that job in the beginning because I wanted to prove to people. And it was funny because prior to me getting my current position, I had interviewed, for jobs at different schools and colleges on this campus. And one of the jobs I applied to, I had gone through, I forget the first or just second round of interview. I didn't make it through to the finals. And I happened to I had a friend who was at that organization. I kind of asked if that person knew and could provide feedback to me through the interview process, what I could have done differently or what was the reason. And ultimately what she described to me was basically that it wasn't a cultural fit, that basically that organization had a certain more traditional and conservative way of doing things, and the way I presented myself was not necessarily as of a fit for their organization. And it was funny that I actually took that feedback and I was like, okay, I understand. And because at that point, at the point of my career I'm in, I know who I am, what I need, and the kind of environment that I can succeed in. And if I'm not a cultural fit for that, I understand that is just, okay, it was not meant to be, it is not my path. I realize that, you have to be really true to yourself, as you're saying, authentic self, not necessarily like, well, I'll do anything, I'll bend myself to make that job work. Well, if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. And so as long as you know and stay true to yourself in that, eventually things will align. And, and I eventually landed in an organization where I am a cultural fit and I'm able to make the most impact that I can.
There's a lot I could say on this question, because there's many things that I think that I wish I would have known 30-some years ago. But when I started off working in higher education, I'm one of those folks, I tell students and parents, I talk to them that I went to college, I never left, because I was a student. When I was a student, I was an RA, and I went from being an RA into my master's program, living on a college campus, and I've always been on or around college campuses. But when I started off my profession, there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't LinkedIn, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't text messaging. We didn't have cell phones. We barely had email when I started. So in today's world, it's presumably very easy to stay connected to people. But it's really hard to develop relationships, authentic, deep relationships in 140 characters or, on Facebook or whatever. And this is something I think that I have done, I've kind of waxed and waned in terms of my ability to stay connected with people throughout my career. One of the things that happens in student affairs for many of us is that you move around a lot. You're moving from, you come and you're a resident director for 3 or 4 years, you move to another campus, and you see people at an annual conference each year, and you reconnect that way. But I think one of the things that would have been helpful probably for me to know, other than to buy Apple stock when I was working here in 1987, to try to really nurture those relationships and just to be more so than what I have done. And now in today's world, I'm able to really reconnect with people that I used to work with as a residential life coordinator, 30-some years ago. But earlier on, we didn't have all those tools. And so you really had to go have a conversation with somebody. You had to leave your desk and walk to somebody else's office and actually talk with them. And so even today, even with all the tools we have, I still think that's a critical way of learning about yourself, learning about others, learning to be a good listener when you're building those relationships. And I think we have many, many mechanisms on our campus to be able to do that, to establish those relationships.
Thank you. I'm looking at Angela. Is she going to hold up we've got 1 minute left? Okay, done. Great, thank you, Angela. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to stay for the very last panel today. I hope that everybody will join us in the reception afterwards. I also want to thank our panel members for sharing their stories, and hopefully folks in the room learned from them. I know that I certainly did, so thank you again to our panel members.